Morning. My name's Steve Gullick. I used to be a professional photographer until my eyes started giving me some trouble. I've had to have cataract operations in both. If I'd have stuck with doing organic film photography, I'd probably been okay, but I found that I had a lot of problem with the digital screens, taking the glasses on and off all the time, and it was getting a bit of a hassle, but of course that's all in the past. I want to talk to you today about a remarkable lens I've found. I've seen a review on it and I thought, well, that looks rather interesting, so I thought I'd get myself one. And it's the 7artisans 60mm macro. In some ways, people won't like this lens because it's not what they used to. Most modern lenses now are made generally out of plastic, which is okay. I mean, it keeps them light. The optics are still very, very good. They still use premium quality glass, and you know, they're well engineered, and there's nothing wrong with them. And they are very, very light, which is what people seem to want. The one I've been looking at today is a little bit different. It's very different, actually, from what you're probably used to using. The first thing I need to show you actually is this. This is how they come. Very nicely boxed. I got mine from Amazon. I think that's the only place you can get them. Delivery, actually, when I ordered it, was about 6 weeks, but it came in 2. So I was amazed really how fast the delivery was from. This is the thing, from China. Yes, this is a Chinese lens. If you can see that on the bottom there, made in China. Now, that's going to put a lot of people off straight away. I don't know why, but it will. People which walk around with their mobile phones, which are made in China, have no problems with them at all. They have Chinese washing machines, Chinese televisions, but as soon as it comes to camera equipment, for some reason, the word China, and people go, ooh, you know, don't want anything Chinese. Even though if you bought a Chinese lens, you're probably going to bolt it onto your Chinese-made camera, or at least significant parts of the camera that you're using, no matter how high-end it is going to be made in China. To be fair, Europe and the UK aren't too bad as far as this goes, but I do know that people across the pond really have this thing about Chinese-produced goods. And to be honest, guys, they're probably better in many cases than your homemade stuff. They really, really are. I'm going to open this box in a second and show you what's inside, and I think you'll be quite surprised. Okay, here it is. This is the box. Now, these are available in a wide range of mounts. You don't need mount adapters for them, no matter what lens you see, what camera system you use. This one is an M43, which is the micro 4/3. Nice substantial box. Inside you get like a suede effect lens pouch, which is probably, if I'm honest, a little bit too small. I wouldn't use it anyway. I prefer to use a protected case. There's also a stick-on focus adapter there. You can stick that on the end of the lens if you should want to. I can't see any reason why you would. Perhaps people who use it for movies might, but it's not something I think I would use. Some very, very basic instructions and the guarantee card. Then we open the box, and there it is. That's your lens. You just take it out. Now, the first thing you'll note is that it's heavy. If you're not used to organic film cameras, you won't be used to this. This is a heavy lens by modern standards. If we go back sort of 30 years, this would be a normal sort of weight for a lens. It's nothing extravagant. It's just that the build quality is amazing. It's made out of metal. It's all metal. And it is astonishingly well built. It really is. It's manual, and I'll go into that in a little bit later on. You've got your f-stop markings there, which a lot of people have probably never seen on a lens before, although you'd obviously get them in your viewfinder. It's a non-click. Most lenses in the old days, if I call them that, would have click stops between each f-stop setting, and possibly click stops between if you wanted to do slight over or under exposure. This hasn't, and again I think that's for the movie market. It doesn't make any noise when you adjust the aperture reading. There's the focus. There's no zoom, it's just a standard prime lens. That's the focus there, and it focuses from infinity all the way down to 1:1 macro there. Now, you cannot but fail to observe this rather strange thing poking out the front as you focus it forward towards the macro part. It is odd, I have to say it is odd, but it's not quite as odd as it looks, because this top half here is basically a tube, and it comes off. I'll show you that in a second. Let me fold it back in. The lens mount, as you can see, is metal. It's beautifully engineered. It is absolutely astonishingly well engineered. I can't fault it at all. It fits perfectly on the camera. It's got the normal red dot there so you can line it up. Comes with a rear lens cap. The front has a clip-on lens cap there. Pretty much the same as the old, well, they still use them. You know, they're quite common. Very small. I think it's a 39. Yeah, I think it's a 39mm front objective lens. Now, let me just go into this again. If I focus it out towards the macro setting, this is the tube. It's like a lens hood really. It comes off, and you've still got your filter ring in there, and you've also got a filter ring in there if you wanted to use a filter. Personally, I don't like using UV filters unless the lens is very, very close to the edge of the actual glass is very close to the edge of the lens. Again, it's absolutely stunning. I don't know if you'll be able to see. If I take this off, I don't know if you can see that, but the aperture is just so smooth. I don't know whether it's 7 or 9 elements to the blades on that, but it's absolutely fantastic, and it gives a fabulous bokeh. Unbelievably good. You need to actually see some example photos to just appreciate just how good it is. But you know, I haven't. I'm not going to put any of my photographs on this particular video. I might put some on later on. This lens hood is a strange thing. Screws on, and they say that you can actually extend it, and you actually poke it into water if you wanted to take some photographs underwater. I don't see why anybody would want to do that. But it is there, and it is an astonishingly good lens hood. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just looks a little bit weird. But having said that, it works, and it works beautifully. I can't tell you just how impressed I am with the quality of this lens. For the money, I just don't think you could beat it. And if you're thinking of getting one, I'd get one, because they've only just come out, and I think they must be doing these at an introductory price. Because I can't believe how cheap it is. If this, instead of saying made in China, said made in Germany, you'd add £200 easily to the price of this lens. You know, without any question. It is that good. It is crystal sharp. It is absolutely amazingly sharp. I mean, to be fair, most of my macro stuff in the past has been done with bellows or with extension tubes. And this knocks it into a cocked hat. Absolutely does. The only thing you're going to have to bear in mind is that it is manual. Now, this isn't a problem. It really isn't a problem. If you set your camera to aperture priority, which most of us do anyway, if you're using it properly, then all you do is just set whatever aperture you want. If you want it, you know, f16 or f2.8, you know, or anywhere in between, just set it to what you want to set it to. Attach it to your camera. Okay, and it's set, because your camera will adjust the speed or the ISO, you know, to suit. You don't have to worry about that. All you need to do is set that up for what sort of well, depth of field you want, really. That's all you need to worry about that for. You still get even at f16, you still get a full viewfinder image on a, well, you see it on a DSLR, well, on a mirrorless like mine, you get a full bright image. But if you wanted to, if you're using a reflex camera, and you find that if f16 your image is very, very dark, difficult to focus, just open it up to f2.8, do your focusing, and then close it down to the aperture that you need. Now, this is manual focus. Now, to be fair, I think everybody should use manual focus anyway, even if you've got autofocus on your camera. Autofocus is brilliant, and it's come on in leaps and bounds, and it's really good, but it has got problems. For instance, unless the thing's actually focused properly, the camera won't fire, so it's very, very slow. With this, with a manual one, when you set your camera to manual, your camera will fire whether it's in focus or not, so there's no lag or delay or why isn't the shutter working. You know, it works every time. Okay, you might get an image that's out of focus, it might be slightly out of focus, it might be absolutely crystal sharp, but you know, your camera will always fire if you're on manual focus, so that's something that's really worth considering. The other thing is with manual focus, well I find it makes me be a photographer again. It stops me just being a snapper, a point and shooter. You have to physically do something. You know, you can pose the picture in the normal way and then you focus it. And the focusing, well, how can you put it? It's a spiritual thing in a way. It's just lovely to actually move the focus barrel there and watch your image slowly come into focus, and then go out of focus again, and then bring it back until you just get it absolutely spot on, and then you press your shutter. That's when you know you're a photographer, I think. It makes all the difference. The only thing is, and it isn't really a problem as such, but in cameras in the old days, they used to have a Fresnel screen with a split ring on it, so you could, when you're looking through the viewfinder, you could focus by getting the image to line up, and that's how it was done. And it worked extremely well, it really did. With a modern camera, you've normally got focusing aids for manual, like focus peaking or magnify. I use the Olympus system, and I use their focus peaking, and it is fantastic. It's just the same as having a split screen on a Fresnel screen. You just focus, set it up, and away you go. It's an absolute doddle. On the Olympus, my Olympus has got 5-axis stabilisation, so you don't need a stabilised lens. You just have to manually set the focal length of the lens when you're setting it up in manual. And again, your image stabilisation works fine. I've used this on and off tripod, and it works absolutely superbly. I'd highly recommend it. It's just lovely. It's just lovely. I can't tell you how pleased I am with it. It is heavy. It's probably twice as heavy as your camera body. So it's not a thing you probably want to carry around all the time. But if you're going out to do macro photography, you know, how much extra stuff do you need? You need your lens. You may need a flash if you want to use flash, and you need your camera and possibly a tripod. I've recently bought a lightweight tripod, a carbon fibre tripod, as a travel tripod, and it's lovely. It's brilliant, actually. I love it to bits. I might do a review of that later. But to be fair, this lens is a bit too heavy for it. I wouldn't really like to put my camera with this lens on a lightweight tripod. I think it's just a bit too much. Not that it's heavy as far as older type lens is concerned, but it's very heavy compared to a modern lens. If I look at that, I've got like an Olympus. That's an Olympus. What is that size? I think it's 40 to 70, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah, 40 to 150. Sorry. Zoom. And that, I mean, quite frankly, although it is a brilliant lens, it really is. It's a good lens. But the quality. There's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison between these two lenses as far as the build quality goes. This Chinese lens, it knocks it into a cocked hat. I can't tell you how good it is. Anyway, I'll come back to that a bit more in a minute. You've heard me raving on about how good it is, and it is good. But there are some things that you need to know. This is a genuine macro lens. Macro has one definition and one definition only. There's lots of rubbish talked about macro, but macro basically means that the image that you take, the size of the object you're taking is exactly the same size on your photo sensor or film as it used to be as it is in real life. That is one-to-one macro, and that's what this is, one-to-one macro. Okay, now because there are different film size sensors, like your APS and your micro four thirds and your full frame and even your medium format size stuff now, your image will be the same size on your sensor, no matter how big your sensor is. That means that if you're something like a micro four thirds, you effectively get a magnified macro image, because it's taken up more of the space on the sensor. When you blow it to the same size in a print, say an 8x10 print, you'll get a bigger image on the smaller sensor, effectively, if you see what I mean. It's because the image will always be the same no matter how big your sensor is. So it's good for that sort of work on a smaller sensor, which is really good. The other thing is it's a 60mm. Now on a micro four thirds, that effectively means it's a 120, a full frame lens, going back to the old days. Now that means it's a very, very good portrait lens. It's a remarkably good portrait lens. What you need with a portrait lens is be far enough away from your subject so there's no distortion. If you try taking a portrait with a wide angle lens, you'll know what I mean. Or even a standard lens, if I refer to the old days, a 50mm lens on a 35mm camera. That's too close. We used to use 135, generally speaking. Some people used to use 90mm, but most people use a 135 as a standard portrait lens, which gave you very, very good proportions, and also it was very good for throwing the background out of focus. And this is the same. This is exactly the same. On my camera, this gives you a 120mm lens, so you're far enough away from your subject not to be intimidating. You can get some very, very good skin tones with these sort of lenses. The features are all in proportion, and the background, if you want it to be, can be thrown into absolute disarray. It's just complete out of focus background, and it's brilliant. I've used 135mm lenses when I've been taking photographs of graduates, and they come in, with all the hats and all the rest of it on, with a green background, trees or bushes and things like that, and they look absolutely stunning. They stand out, they pop out of the frame. Really, really good. Anyway, I think I've raved on enough about this. I've had a lot of lenses in the past. I mean, most of the stuff I used to do when I was doing it professionally was medium format. And medium format stuff is built, well, it's built to last. It really is extremely good quality stuff, because it's used generally by professional photographers, and it has to do the job. This, in my opinion, is of the same sort of build quality. Well, I think you already gathered, I'm really over the moon with this lens. I can't believe how good it is. I suggest you go and get one. And get into manual focusing. Manual focusing is brilliant. It takes you back to what photography is all about. It's making you take your time. Get a tripod. If you're doing landscapes, take your time. Frame your picture. Wait for the sky to be right. Wait for the clouds on the, shadows on the ground to be in the right place. Manually focus. Use a graduated filter. Get back into doing photography rather than just taking pictures. Okay. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, by all means, just leave a comment underneath, and I'll be happy to reply to you as soon as I can. I'll probably do another few of these sort of videos.